Welcome all to this session. It will really probably give you a lot of insight on how your profile has to be prepared from the interview perspective. Okay. The first and foremost thing is you have to give complete attention to the English grammatical usage. Okay. A lot of resumes that I found, there are a lot of grammatical mistakes. Alignment is not good. For example, I'll just give you, let me copy and paste some project title here and then I'll explain about that. So, say I'm presenting this as a project title. Someone starts off with a small letter, right? It's common sense that when you start any sentence, it has to be started with a capital letter. That's a common sense. And someone, a few of y'all provide a colon and not a space. Space has to be there after the colon. Someone provide a space here. If you provide a space here, everywhere else ensure that you provide that space. But the best practice is not to provide a space before the previous word and the colon. But immediately after the colon, you have to provide a space and then it has to start off in this way. Okay. Another commonly misused thing is comma. After comma, a few of y'all are not giving the spaces. I've gone through resumes of participants, right? We've also forwarded a few to various vendors. Okay. After comma, there always has to be a space. Okay. Mandatory. Okay. There has to be a space which is mandatory. And whenever you have bullet points, for example, let me take you guys here. If you look at the business impact, these are the bullet points. Whenever you have bullet points, ensure that you do not end it with a full stop. Bullet points usually do not end with a full stop. Okay. So that is from the English grammatical perspective. Very trivial, a common sense driven approach. You guys have to ensure that you do not make such mistakes. Okay. Get it reviewed by someone else, because the moment people looks at your resume, if there are any spelling mistakes or grammatical mistakes, or if you cannot formulate a sentence properly, that in itself will give a bad impression about you and your resume. Okay, next thing, whatever previous experience you have to provide, all that is fine. But when it comes to data science projects that you have worked on, there is a specific format in which you have to mention or explain about your projects. Typical duration of data science projects will be from 30 to 45 days. In certain rare scenarios, the project duration extends beyond that. Of course, there are projects which last for 1 year, 2 years, but nevertheless, typically the duration of the projects will be from 30 to 45 days. Say a 1 year experience on an average. Even if you consider that a few projects have, you know, longer duration, a few projects fall in the typical life cycle, a few projects you could accomplish faster, given all those things. On an average, for every 3 months, ensure that you have one project. For every 3 months, ensure that you have mentioned one project. Okay. First thing is project title. First, understand what is this project all about? To which industry are you catering to? And give a brief one line explanation about what that project title is all about. And the next thing is problem statement. So that is how you provide the project statement basically. So there is a spelling mistake. Let me get rid of that. Okay. Surviving in aviation industry over a long run by generating profits constantly month on month is no trivial task. So I'm giving just some brief explanation about this project, and then the problem statement is explained clearly. This instills some confidence in the interviewer that you actually understand the problem that we are trying to solve. Most often than not, people do not even understand the problem statement clearly, not at a high level. You cannot say that I'm building a prediction model for loan defaulters. Doesn't work that way. What is the pain area of that particular client for whom you have done this project? Without understanding that, no one will agree, no one will buy in your statement. So you understand the business problem clearly, carefully, give a holistic view to that. For example, if you have a project from European Union, what are the data security norms? Right? People would ask you this. If you work for a client from European Union, they might ask you about what is GDPR? What are the data protection regulatory norms that you understand? Because whenever you deal with data, organizations do not take you and say, hey, here is a project, here is a data set, go get started. Doesn't work that way. They will put you all across into multiple trainings pertaining to data security and data privacy. So you should not be downloading the dataset onto your computer on which you work. Normally in real world, you connect to a server which is very powerful. You're allowed only to download the dataset on that server and then work on your algorithm on that server. It cannot so happen that customers will allow their data to be downloaded onto the laptops of all the 10 data scientists. No, it doesn't work that way. Here is where you need to understand on how data security norms are laid in your organization. Extremely important, right? There will be a centralized server on which data resides. I request everyone to mute yourself, okay? And then whoever is working has to connect to the server and then run the algorithm there on R or Python or SAS or whatever be it. And that's it. No way you're supposed to download the data. That's data security norms. A few customers are so paranoid about the data that they will not even let their data cross a continent. Forget about you downloading on your laptop sitting in India, right? They will not even allow this server that your organization has to reside outside the continent. So if you're doing for working for a client in USA, they expect the server to be residing in USA. No data at any given point of time can move out of USA. Okay, so please understand these things. Don't display or showcase as if you're a lay person who doesn't know anything about data security. You don't know how things work. Don't assume that the data sets travel to you, sit on your Google Drive from where you download and start working. Doesn't work that way in real world. Okay, hope you'll bear that in mind. And the next thing is you need to understand on what are the business challenges. Okay, um, that is optional basically. You may or may not want to provide your business challenges. Okay, however, you will have to certainly provide the business solution, right? What solution have you provided which has solved this problem statement? So there has to be some sync from here on. Okay, and it is highly recommended to put these business solution in bullet points because usually you do not provide a single solution to a problem. You'll not say that to solve this problem, let me predict. No, you'll do multiple things. What are those multiple things? Okay, data simulation, right? You might be using data optimization techniques. You might have used forecasting techniques. You might have used machine learning techniques on a single project. Normally, that is how it works. Do not assume that if I get a project, I'll be doing only prediction. Wrong. Data simulation and data optimization techniques also might be applied. Or on a single project, you might apply machine learning techniques as well as forecasting techniques, right? So the solution that you provide should answer each and every aspect of the problem statement which you have listed down. So when I read this problem statement and when I read this solution, there has to be some sync between what you're speaking and the solution that you're providing. Okay. And the next thing is technical overview. How did you go about with the technical aspects? Now, here you need to understand what tools you have used in the first place. Have you used R? Have you used Python? Have you used Shiny app? Have you used anything else? Have you used Tableau for data visualization or exploratory data analysis? Right? And you should have a strong backing when people ask you, did you work on R or did you work on R Studio? You might say you worked on R Studio. Okay. Was it a licensed version? A few of them who do not know, I've found this, they say that it's a free version. R Studio free version is what they've worked on. Okay. Can you ever work on R Studio free version for commercial purposes? No. R Studio is open source only for personal purpose. If you're billing your customer, if this is a project which is not free of cost, then you have to procure the commercial license of RStudio. You need to understand that. Okay. Tableau. I've used Tableau. What did you use Tableau for? No answer. Majority of them, right? So you should be able to say that you have performed maybe exploratory data analysis on Tableau, or maybe you found forecasting time series fascinating on Tableau because Tableau uses 8 different techniques pertaining to exponential smoothing. And out of 8 different forecasting techniques, it will choose one technique which is the best. So you might want to say that for forecasting time series, I found probably that Tableau is easier. For exploratory data analysis, majority of them use Tableau because it's very easy, to explore data using Tableau basically. Or people use combination of R and Tableau, or R and sorry, Python and Tableau, or any other tools. That's from the tools perspective. Then from the techniques perspective, what did you use? From machine learning perspective, probably I've used decision tree. Okay, and from forecasting perspective, maybe you can say you have used ARIMA technique. Maybe from what if analysis perspective, you have used some other tool, maybe at the rate risk, right? And from optimization perspective, maybe you have used some kind of linear programming. So in that way, you have to clearly list down on what techniques you have applied. And please believe me that always the techniques that you use, most often than not, will include combination of data mining unsupervised and data mining supervised, right? And that is how things happen in real world. You generate clusters. For each cluster, you build a decision tree. Very, very rare scenarios might arise where you might use only data mining unsupervised or only data mining supervised techniques. Unsupervised clustering happens majorly, but only decision tree or only machine learning algorithm, very rare. Okay. And then the next thing is benefits. Okay, you have understood the business problem. You have understood the business problem and you have provided solution which fits like a T for this business problem. You know the tools which were used, you know which of those were commercial, which of those were open source, you know what techniques you have used. All right, you have done all these things, but did you actually notice any benefit? And benefits should be majorly quantitative in nature. You cannot always provide a qualitative benefit basically. When I say quantitative, people ask you questions such as, all right, you have done some cargo management, what is the reduction in percentage of unused cargo space? Now you cannot say 2%, 3%, or 1%, whatever number comes to your mind, right? So you should have that calculation ready. Okay, and then you have to place that on your resume. Basically, all these things you will get it from your organizations. Basically, you have to be thinking from the business perspective mainly. Okay, now in this entire episode you find majorly on your resume the business perspective only, right? Only here there is some technical overview. This is exactly how your resume should look like. So you should understand the business problem, business solution, and the benefits, right? This is how your resume should look like. However, when it comes to your preparation, that is where you need to focus extremely more on technical overview section. From showcasing perspective, majorly from business perspective on your resumes, but from preparation perspective, it's more from the technical perspective. Okay, so remember that thing. And here a few tips and tricks. You understood your business problem. That's very obvious based on how you have written your resume. Of course, do not forget on what you have written on your resume, please, for God's sake. Okay, and then understand the complete data set. Now here is where people will ask you questions on what was the size of your data set. Here they might mean two things. The physical size may be 500 MB or so, or they might be asking this question in terms of rows and columns, right? How many records did you have? How many variables did you have? Or what was your feature set? Feature set is combination of all your variables. What was your feature set? How many variables have you used? How many features have you used? Questions would be on those lines. People who have not worked on live projects will buckle here and they will never be able to crack interviews. Why? They really don't know common sense driven things on what are the variables that they have dealt with. Right? Beautiful resumes, amazing resumes, copy paste from somewhere else looks fascinating. But when people ask questions on, name me five variables from your data set, no answer. What was your output variable? I really don't know. Right? Things should not go in that way. You should understand on what is your output variable, what are your input variables, right? If it is forecasting time series, what is the uh, record frequency? I mean, observations frequency. Is it monthly data or is it quarterly data or weekly data? What kind of data frequency was there in time series? Very, very important. And you need to then understand the techniques that were used. For example, if you say decision tree, of course, you need to know what is entropy, what is information gain, what is greedy algorithm, what is decision tree C 5.0, what is boosting marking. These kind of things you should be aware of. Clustering. What clustering techniques do you use? What do you do when there are outliers in clustering? Right? In your data set, there are outliers. What kind of clustering technique do you use? If the underlying data has a lot of noise, then what technique do you use? Right? If you have majorly categorical data, what techniques do you use? These kind of questions frequently arise, and we have time and again been delivering, webinars to cover all these aspects. Okay, offline we discuss with the people who attend the interviews, get to know about what kind of questions are asked, right? With a few of them we could spend some time to understand these aspects, and based on that our webinars are devised. Don't assume that we on the fly think about a concept and then say, okay, today I like this webinar, let me give this webinar. It doesn't work that way. Okay, we are in constant touch with a few of the people who are approachable. We get to understand interviews, we get to understand what kind of questions are asked. If those concepts are not there in our regular curriculum, we tend to add it as part of webinars. So bear that in mind also. Okay, that's from the techniques used perspective. Okay, then deployment strategy. Normal question, how do you deploy your solution to the customer? Either you build a mobile application, or you build a web application, or you build a Shiny app, or you give the code to the customer and ask that customer to run. It happens through multiple channels basically. So if you're predicting on loan default, for example, you'll simply give a mobile application to the end user. There'll be input called age, say income. I'm giving just normal example, and the other attributes. And then you'll have a button called submit. The moment people click on submit, another screen appears which will say there is 92.3% probability or chance that this person will default or the applicant might default. Done. This is all customers need, right? Could be like this, right? And how do you integrate, or should people manually give the inputs? Sometimes yes. The loan processing officer manually keys in the data. Sometimes they have their own application data, right? Wherein customer fills the first name, last name, mobile number, email ID, gender, so on and so forth. The relevant fields automatically are synchronized with their existing IT infrastructure, and immediately the results are thrown. Okay, that's probably think about that as some kind of web application. Or Shiny app works on similar lines. You can explore when you go to R Studio. There is something called a Shiny server. Explore that. So all the R code, I mean, the interface of Shiny app looks like a mobile app only. Okay, so if this mobile app is built on say Python, using Python you have built, of course not many people use that, but if you use Python and build a mobile application, and if your underlying code for your machine learning or your data science project to accomplish that, you might have used Python code. If you use that, then it is easy to integrate with this, right? Websites majorly are built using Python nowadays. So if you have done your projects using Python, then it is easy to integrate. That's the only reason why Python is becoming popular. Or if the client organization has their own data science team, then you give your code to them, let them have this particular code and let them execute the code basically. Finally, the maintenance strategy. No data science project is such that you build a project now and it will work for the next 100 years. No, depending on the changing environment, right, you have to define your maintenance strategy. For example, if there is a new bill passed in parliament, GST, right, it will impact the model. I'm not saying positively or negatively, but it will have an impact on the model that you have previously built, right? See Donald Trump's decisions of banning a few countries, it will have an impact on airlines, or it can have impact on anything basically. So management change, right, or business process reengineering, or an organization has gone from say spreadsheet culture to ERP culture, right? All these and many more will actually trigger changes to your model, because the underlying process is what they change, the laws that govern, they change many things. Now GDPR is coming May 26th May. This will have an impact, of course. Earlier, probably people were not so strict about data quality assessment. Now they will become deadly serious. 4% of the global revenue of an organization is the fine if someone deviates from GRDP. It's not sorry, GDPR. My bad. Okay, it's GDPR. You can. I request everyone to do some research on GDPR also when you find time. Earlier, it was a British standard 10,012. Even now, you have for that case, right? General Data Protection Regulation. You have BS 10012, right? British Standard. This is also based on the same logic, or you can think about GDPR as an extension to this BS 10012, Personal Information Management System. Okay, PIMS. So, all right. Anyways, data is very important. At the same time, these kind of laws that are being passed are also equally important. So, keep yourself abreast of these things so that you fare well in the interviews. Okay, and a few more things. Have you done any imputation? If you say yes, on which variable have you done the imputation? If you say that you have done some outlier analysis, I mean, one of our participants recently was just explaining me this, that they have asked questions on explain me a specific instance about why it is an outlier, right? And what kind of analysis have you performed? So there will be many such questions which will be based on your data set alone. Once the interviewer gets convinced that you have actually worked on this, they will go for specific questions, right? So your data set is like your heart. Simple. All right. So with this, I'll stop. Hope you got brief idea. Once again, I wish to recap. Project title, project statement, business solution, technical overview, and benefits are mandatory for each and every project. And then, whenever you're when you prepare your resume, focus should be more from business perspective and less focus on the techniques. But when you actually prepare for your interview, more focus should be on the technical aspects. You should know in and out of your data set, what techniques you have used, and what is the deployment strategy and what is the maintenance strategy. One more thing, a few of the people go ahead and prepare Tableau storyboard, right? For example, when you go to interviews, you can actually open your laptop and showcase your resume on Tableau, right? A brief introduction about your educational qualifications, the projects that you worked on, right? Here, what happens is, in a nutshell, in a screenshot, you'd be able to explain all these aspects. You can probably create a quadrant: problem statement, business solution, technical overview, and benefits. There could be a quadrant here, and you can explain neatly by renaming your project here, right? That will probably bring in more excitement to the people who are watching. And any visualization that you want to show about your project, show it here, right? This is what will make you stand out from the crowd. Or do it here, do the beautification part here, take a screenshot and also mention a small statement that you have kept that particular screenshot from Tableau basically. Just mention that in the footnote somewhere. These are all innovative ways which I anyways do not want to get into the depth at this point of time. So this is what I had for you all today. This video recording will anyways be shared with people provided certain conditions are met.